Started, and hopefully some more people will trickle in as we start. I'm Alison King. I'm the Associate Dean of the Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, and I want to welcome you on behalf of Dean Peter Stute, who is unwell today, so he's unable to come. And I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Ontario Tech University acknowledges the lands and people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We are thankful to be welcomed on these lands in friendship. The lands we are situated on are covered under the Williams Treaties and the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, which is a branch of the Greater Anishinaabe Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. These lands remain home to a number of Indigenous nations and peoples. But as many of us are located or conduct research in other places across Ontario, across Canada, or even around the world, I encourage you to learn about the lands where you live and conduct your research. This history that with the Indigenous peoples is something that we are all affected by, as we are all treaty people in Canada. We have this shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, then it does not have to define our future. Thank you. So I'll turn it over to Isabel to introduce our keynote speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to welcome all of you here today for our event. The event is also hosted by Digital Life Institute, and it's really at the intersection of three of our research clusters today. The first is AI and social implications, and there are members of that cluster here with us. The second is AI and education, and thrilled to have Alison here, who's also a member of that cluster. And the third is building digital literacy. And our guest today is a long-standing member of the research cluster building digital literacy for DLI. So I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Jason Tham, who is an assistant professor of technical communication and rhetoric in the Department of English at Texas Tech University. He is also the co-director of the User Experience UX Research Lab and co-advisor to the student organization Raider, which is UXUL. One of his many books is Design Thinking and Technical Communication, which came out in 2021 with Routledge. And it applies user-centered design methodologies to pedagogy and professional practice. He's published articles and given talks about design thinking, user experience, emerging technologies, digital literacy, and writing pedagogy. Thank you so much, and we welcome you today.
Thank you. I am assuming you can hear me okay. Good. All right, let me pull up my presentation here. Okay, looks good. All right, well, thank you so much, all of you for having me. And I would like to also begin with some acknowledgements here. First on about the lands on which I work and live, Texas Tech, Lubbock, and our surrounding community here. We occupy the territory of the Comanche and Mescalero Apache peoples, and we acknowledge that on this land. I also want to thank the Digital Life Institute and founding director, Dr. Isabel Peterson, for inviting me for this keynote, and for all of you at Ontario Tech for having me. I also like to thank an individual, Ilya Higginson, who used to work at Snapchat. A lot of this work that I am going to cover today was sort of informed, and I also learned from him. He was one of the co-panelists that I was on, and Isabel was on the panel as well 2 weeks ago, where we spoke to faculty at the California State University in LA. And I also want to acknowledge some of the materials that I use and present here today were created and shared by the TTU, Texas Tech University Teaching and Learning Professional Development Center. So before I start, I think it's good to acknowledge some of my own personal positionality, where I'm coming from as I look at the topic of AI and using AI in writing and teaching and for student in their learning. So for me, my training is in technical communication, as you hear in the introduction by Isabel, and rhetorical education. And so with that, I bring with me some theoretical and sort of philosophical perspectives toward technology, um, as well as my own experience in teaching writing, and what that means in the 21st century and in our classroom today, where our student writers have very different needs and expectations in preparing their own sort of professional capacity for working in the world. Um, and because of my own interest in design and design thinking, I also use that as part of my own sort of theory and methodology in understanding technologies. And I'm showing here some works that you might be interested in looking into. Um, Covered in the introduction, we have the Design Thinking and Technical Communication, my first book with Rutledge, and I apply design thinking as a mindset for understanding technical communication problems and workplace practices. And this other collection that was just published at the end of 2022 uh, with the University Press of Colorado is actually an open access resource. And I'll be sharing this slide set. I've actually given a link to Karen, who will be circulating this material to you after the presentation. And I hope that you can check out some of these links that I've included in the presentation, and hopefully they're useful to you afterwards. And with this edited collection, it has a bunch of what is called keywords, keywords entries that are related to design and its application in the technical communication and writing studies, really, context. And finally, I want to acknowledge that I'm both a realist and an idealist. So it's interesting to kind of think about technology, especially cutting edge technology like AI today, from both an idealist sort of perspective, what it can do, what I hope that it will do for us, and a realist, right? Sort of on a practical, on a pragmatic sort of point of view, how we should approach this and how we should handle it. So I have this sort of debate in my own head, my left and right shoulders, if you will, between the ideal and the real. And I also want to address the elephant in the room, right? I feel that if I were a student and that this tool was available to me when I was learning, I would have used it. And I think the AI writing tool is powerful in some ways. It has limitations and constraints, but I would want it to be useful and helpful, easy to use, right, from a user perspective. And also, I would want to spend time doing something else, right? I mean, learning is great, but some of the activities that we do, right, for as part of our learning, I would rather be have it be automated and have it be a bunch easier, right, during my own experience. So I think I would just put this out there, right? That's kind of my own positionality. And speaking of position, I would open with this kind of statement for us to kind of be on the same page, hopefully, to think about AI technologies. I think I've heard over the last few months a lot of narratives and discourse of crisis, that we all kind of see this as a problem that needs to be resolved immediately, and that we either ban this technology or we just kind of try to adopt this in order to not have to feel like we are misusing or changing the way we teach and learn. But I think that this course of crisis may not be all that much helpful in a conversation such as this. I like to come to it from a more productive, meaningful engagement with the technology and conversation with our peers about its use and its non-use as well. Um, and some of you may know that there's this whole subfield in writing studies that's called computers and writing. It has its own journal called Computers and Composition, and I encourage you to check it out on your own. It has a bunch of scholarship, history that engages with computing technologies starting from the very beginning. I want to say the late 60s, the early 70s, even before personal computers were brought into the classroom for pedagogical purposes. There's already been literature and theories that have been built to inform us on our use of technologies for the purpose of teaching and learning. And I encourage you to check out some of these links that are sort of relevant to, I think, time-tested theories and conversation about technology and their influence on education. The third point here, in terms of my position, is to consider technologies as social tools. So, first, in terms of tools, technologies are, to me, not enemies. They are things that we invented, human invented, and that they can help us do things. And we just have to leverage them, hence the word leveraging in my title of the talk. But also seeing it as a socially constructed material resource. So that means it brings to us some social implications, right? They're interactive and interactional and transactional sort of effects that these tools can have on us. So between us, among our peers, with our students, with the community at large, these tools can have effects on our interactions and relationships. And finally, putting on my technical communicator's hat, I've always sought out opportunities to contribute to the design and the development of these tools. I think teachers have a particular expertise in some ways to contribute to these conversation and to inform the design of these technologies for the future. Looking back, we have always been concerned with technologies that can disrupt teaching and learning. So I just wanted to remind us on some of these technologies that have came before, that have caused waves in the classroom and beyond, right? You recognize all of this, right? We have the calculation tools, aids. We have the search engine, right? Remember when it first became popular and useful to us, right? How have students changed the way they look up information, right? How has it disrupted the way we organize knowledge, distribute, mobilize, right? Information technologies, right? And then we have this open source encyclopedias, right? That are available online and could be contributed by anyone and right looked up and used by our students in writing, that has I think still today conversations about its use and its impact, right, on student writing. And not so long ago, right, we have these smart assistants that have come into our pockets, right, that we could count on to do some of our personal tasks, reminders, or give us snippet of information that we could use for whatever, right, for even for writing, right. I can ask it to look up something that I might be trying to learn. And for myself, I teach document design. I teach technical communicators to write and to build things like website, and print and digital documents. And I have observed too that students have learned different tools that they can use that has sort of disrupted the way we used to do things, right, so to speak, in industry. With web building, for example, we have these like drag and drop web design that no longer requires students to learn to code, as well as again drag and drop, and what you see is what you get. Sort of print and digital design applications as well, and also you might have used this yourself, right? Template-based, template-driven graphic design, right? Such as this, even the PowerPoint I'm using to deliver this talk today was template driven. I did not have to create any of these graphics myself, right? So I'm trying to say that automation has become so everyday part of our work and life, and that's how I'm seeing these sort of tools that are now becoming more available to us in terms of AI writers. And today I want to just focus on the writing part of AI and not really the visual or the other sort of modality that some AI tools are able to generate as well, such as Mid-Journey or DALL-E 2 that are available to generate AI visuals. But here we are just looking at written tools, writing tools that are powered by AI, and all you can see here is just some of the samples that I've collected online as the top tools. And of course, you recognize the OpenAI and ChatGPT tool that's what prompted this whole conversation, right? And the keynote. And also, just not long ago, 2 weeks or 2 months or so, that GPT has become available for subscription based purchase, right? You get more powerful, greater access to some of these content that it can deliver, right? And with priority to new features that OpenAI is delivering. Some key terms I think will be helpful for us to learn to talk about AI writers are these. I will start with machine learning, which is a way computers learn to solve complex tasks on its own by teaching itself different solutions or different ways that humans have trained it to solve or address these tasks. Second, large language model, which is key to AI writers. LLM, it's an example of a machine learning model that understands and generates natural language text. What it means is that it takes natural language, so not coded language, not computer's command, just natural everyday human language, and understands it as task or understands it as commands, and then spits out natural language text for us. So it's natural to natural. So you don't need, just like the drag and drop sort of web design tools, you don't need a coding background in order to understand or to use the tool. So that's the large language model. And I want to just show us the difference that we have come just in a month's time, right? From GPT-3 to GPT-4. And GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's a transformer, excuse me. It's a transformer in the sense that it transforms task to text. So pre-trained simply means that it's trained by a corpus of data that is given to it, or inputs that have been provided by human users, such as us when we go on OpenAI or ChatGPT and ask it to do things. It is learning from those input and trying to understand that what a human user means when they say describe, when they say write, when they say poetry, right? These are things that it is trying to learn what it means and what the expectations are by the human user. And generative means it's um, generative in nature, right? It is trying to create corpus using corpus of data. And between these GPT-3 and 4, you can see there's a huge improvement just between the two versions. You don't have to really understand what parameters are here, but I would point our attention to the data set that is used to train the model. So even just with 17 gigabytes of training data that was fed to GPT-3, we are already seeing that it's powerful, right? In understanding the input that we provide and provide the sort of generative output that we see across all different genres, right? You can see creative writing, we can see sort of narrative essays, we can see report style, genres that are being produced by these models. And now with GPT-4, it's being trained on 45 gigabytes of data of literature and corpus. And I can only see that its output is going to be way better and stronger, right? So how does it really work? Again, training is part of that the key conversation here. It's based on digitized text or literature passed through the large language model to these transformers, and it builds a memory. So the model learns and remembers associations between words and our input. It can correct things based on what the human user is asking it to do, right? The chat GPT allows you to regenerate um, output using the same prompt, right? So it is trying to learn what meets the expectations of the users best. And a lot of us maybe do not do this, but there is this thumbs up and thumbs down, right? Icon on chat GPT as well. It's another way of rating the output that it generates, and you can tell it to do better by providing those sort of response or rating. And finally, we need to understand that this model, and this is what I learned from Hickinson from Snapchat, was that these kind of transformer, what it does is that it generates word by word. So it is trying to associate the next word to come, right, with the previous word. What is the most likely word to come after X, right? So in a lightning speed, right, as it is writing, it is trying to generate based on guessing of the next word. So that's how it works. What is revolutionary about it, though? Pre-chat GPT is the chat part, right? It's what it's allowing for a two-way learning, right? It's a conversation between the machine model and the human user, right? The human user has a lot of power in influencing the output of the AI writer, and I think that's what changes the game, right? It's no longer just the machine learning from a set corpus, but rather it's a, a two-way, right? So now I can be part of that training. I can provide models, additional models to the AI via these conversation feedback, right? So if I was having a conversation with another colleague earlier and I call it a learning machine and they go, whoa, let's stop there. Um, so it is a machine that's learning from you, just like your students in the classroom, right? You are providing these sort of back and forth feedback to the student as they are trying to understand what it is that you as a teacher are expecting, right, of them. So it learns that way. So I've been asked to showcase some examples that I've gathered from different places. And I want to start with academic examples, some language, some activities, some policies that I've seen being published and given to different teachers as resources for them to think about the AI usage in the classroom. I start with this from my own institution, from the Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development Center. Um, you can see everything is sort of just vague. We are trying to understand what the institution as a whole should do, where we should stand in terms of its use. We do not have an institution-wide policy right now on the adoption or the rejection of AI writers. But I can see that it's taking a pretty positive route around understanding, asking questions about what are some of the possibilities as well as limitations of AI writers. So again, these are provided in the slides so you can look at them later. I've seen teachers assigning AI writers such as ChatGPT in their classroom. So this is a general humanities or human science, I want to guess, HUSC course at our university. And this teacher is assigning a professional letter writing assignment here. And you can see as part of the prompt, it gives the students an option to use ChatGPT to generate a first version of the letter. And they could then revise it using the comments or the suggestion feature on the word processor to identify places where they would revise or edit or change or remove, right, from the AI generated content. So we are experimenting, we are playing, right? We're trying to see what students would think about the quality of these output generated by AI writers. Um, And what I thought was interesting too, this particular teacher, Suzanne Tapp, also offered a non-chat GPT version of the same assignment. So I think that was interesting in terms of seeing what students would choose to approach, right? Do they prefer to write without an AI writer, or would they prefer to write with the AI writer? And I think that can in itself be a very interesting research project, at least for me, thinking as a writing researcher. Um, Before I show you some policy languages, I want to feature this Sentient Syllabus project that is linked here, and you can Google it up too. It has an open source website that allows people to just download all the things that other people have contributed, and you can contribute your own materials as well to this website project. And the two values that I thought was kind of important for us when we think about setting rules or standards or policies for our students. One is referencing and validating. I think it is important to tell students that they have the full responsibility for AI generated materials or content, because ultimately they are the human who created the prompt, who created the command, if you will, for the AI writers to generate whatever output that it's being asked to produce. And so those ideas needed to be attributed as human originated ideas, but generated with the help of AI writers. So that's important. The second important principle, I think, here it's openness. I think it's important to include in the language that we are in a phase where we are experimenting, and we're in a phase of understanding what this technology can do to us and to our work. And so we're playing with this part, if you will. And I think being open about this mindset and principle can help us to move forward with our students in a productive and meaningful manner. Some of you might be interested. What are in the academic industry? What are different journals, for example, or publishers saying about the use of AI, right, in the context of publications or research? So here I have three examples. Hopefully they're relevant. I'm drawing from my own experience here, so they're sort of grounded in technology studies and also writing studies. So we have from the IEEE, which is an engineering organization. They are saying that AI generated text shall be disclosed in the acknowledgments section of any paper submitted to either the conference or the journals that they support, and that we should have citations to whichever AI systems that we use to generate the text. And I thought it was really interesting to highlight that it needs to be in the acknowledgments and not a co-author, right? Um, the second example here is by Elsevier, a more popular sort of publisher here. In the highlighted text, you can see that AI and AI-assisted technologies cannot be listed as authors or co-authors or be cited as an author. So, and Allison might have opinions here as well from the library, right? Authorship implies that responsibilities and tasks can only be attributed to and performed by humans. So this is a philosophy that Elsevier is holding, and I thought it's interesting to kind of for us to consider as well. It doesn't say, well, it does say that it needs to be acknowledged as well. A statement will appear in the published work, but we cannot attribute written content to AI from the perspective of authorship. And finally, I have this ACM, the Association for Computer Machinery, and I just received this actually in my email as a part of their membership, and they have not decided. They are putting out a survey trying to gauge the temperature, right, of the membership to see what really do we think in terms of using AI as part of the publishing process. Those are three examples, two similar sort of policy languages, and one that is sort of on the undecided side, which I thought is kind of interesting as national organizations are trying to figure out at this time. And speaking of national, at the U.S., the White House have also put out languages about protecting users from algorithmic biases, discriminations, and the requirements for AI writing creators to provide notices and explanations on how things work, their limitations, as well as what their usage means for different kinds of users. So I think it is important to also consider this as a federal level sort of requirement and policies that we look into as we create our own language to use with students. Um, and in terms of conversations, I encourage us as we're thinking about uh, a way of moving forward, some of the things that we can ask, not just with our students, but I would begin with ourselves. So conversation with yourself could include questions such as, how does this generative AI fit within the scope of my teaching and learning? How does it support my learning objectives, right? And with students, we could talk about feelings about writing, feelings about design, and what do they feel or expect, right, from these AI writing tools. We might also want to approach this and ask them if they have any fear, right, about the AI writing tools, right? Not all students are, gung ho about wanting to use this tool and jump right in. Some of them are worried that their data are being collected, right? The prompts that they create are part of the training materials, right, for these companies. What do they mean from an ethical standpoint? What do we what to stand for, right, in terms of an ethical use of technology. With institutions, we could ask folks to help us learn about these, right? And you are here, right, trying to also understand from events such as this to help learn about the development of AI writing tools. Um, and I encourage us to also look outwards and get feedback from industry practitioners, right? What do people think outside of the academic world in using AI tools within different fields, right? How do they affect different workflow standards, requirements, and quality of product, right? So so with that, I want to bring in some examples that I'm also seeing from industry that might be insightful for us to think about the use of AI. So I follow this one practitioner. Her name is Amruta Renate, and she is a technical writer working in the U.S. with a small coding company. And it was interesting. She has this YouTube channel, again, linked here, that I encourage you to check out. She talks about her um, day in the life of being a technical writer. And she's very one of the early adopters of new technologies. So I followed her videos and I noticed that she talked about using AI as a learning tool in the workplace. So here I've captured an example of her talking about using ChatGPT to understand a certain subject matter, a topic, right? So asking it, what is change data capture, right? I do not know what change data capture is, right? But in the past, pre Chat GPT, I would go to Wikipedia, right? I will Google this term and I'll try to look up what Wikipedia tells me about CBC, right? But here she's using it, using the AI chat tool to spit out, this kind of quick summary about the topic. She also talked about using it as an invention tool, right? To use it for writing um, early drafts of a given sort of task. Right here, she said, "Give me a list of topics to manage Airbyte," and I have no understanding of Airbyte here. But anyhow, the Chat GPT was able to gather some sources and write out some suggestions for managing this Airbyte technology. And she talks about ways to evaluate these content, cross-checking, fact-checking, and also using multiple AIs tool for comparison purposes, right? To compare content. So those are two different scenarios. We have the learning scenarios here, and we have the invention, the writing scenario. Other things that I'm seeing from industry are that folks are very eager to learn about these tools. I'm seeing these quote unquote boot camps online that are being offered to industry practitioners to learn to use generative AI for writing, for designing, and UX here stands for user experience, right? So we're talking about writing products that are user facing, and how can we best use and leverage AI to do that kind of work. Here's a summary from that bootcamp. So whether you're a professional writer, designer, you're trying to optimize your workflow, we're going to teach you how to use AI to get ahead of the game, right? And here's what they're teaching people to do: generating content for websites and apps, analyzing users, creating content for marketing purposes, creating graphics and illustrations, such as this Rocco, the raccoon mascot that they have generated using an AI here. Um, for me, when I see this, I'm like, okay, so if industry folks are interested in doing this, what does that mean for me, as someone who's training students who are going into the workforce, right? Students who will be a part of this world post graduation, right? And previously, as a writing teacher, I would always think about, say, editing, publishing, content management, right? Those are things that I would equip my students with both processes and tools in order to be able to participate in industry practices, right? Activities right away, post graduation. And now it means that I have to talk about the sort of effects of AI in the workplace, and how student writers as humans would sort of have different responsibilities in the workplace, right? So this website here is showing that now technical writers or professional writers have the responsibility for reading AI generated content for readability, right? Purposes, for grammatical, for technical structures, right? As well as adding the human element, right? Personal insights or human insights into the content being generated by AI writing tools. And so, if you're worried that students are gonna be out of jobs, I would say no. They can be creative, right? I'm seeing these like post where folks are selling themselves as different, having different capabilities for working with AI. This freelance Tom here, for example, is charging $100 here an hour to edit, rewrite AI generated articles, blogs, essays, right? So I think there is a future for technical professional writers in a world where AI will be a common tool. Um, and in the title of this talk, I talked about using a design sort of human-centered mindset that might be helpful for us to think about integration of AI in our work. And I want to start with this design mindset that could be applied really, I think, for anything and not just for content generation. Um, and what it means is to first and foremost focus on human needs and values. So we need to identify what makes us human, and when we're designing content or generating content, even with AI tools, we have to consider prioritizing human values. And second, our solutions are going to be human centric, user centric. It means addresses human problems, but also with care toward the environment and the natural ecology. Um, and third, Isabel might like this, that I think these kind of processes has to be collaborative, and it has to be action driven. So we can't just sit here and talk about it without an action plan for addressing the problems that we face. Um, and the solutions has to be tangible. It can be philosophical or abstract. And finally, we also need to adopt an iterative sort of process in continually improving whatever solution or content or things that we generate at an incremental level. I mean, bits by bit, we are going to improve it on a continuous level. So, what it means for AI, then, I think for human centeredness, is that we no longer put ourselves around the tool, but rather have the tool have us in the middle of the picture, right? Humans being the center of the picture. And the tool itself are the ones helping us to accomplish all of these things that I've mentioned earlier, right? Identifying human needs, focusing on human-centric solutions, being collaborative and being action-driven and being iterative, right? All of these things AI can really help us accomplish, but we do have to put the human in the middle, in the core of the picture. And what that translates into is a human in the loop kind of mentality, a human in the loop process. So in the case of ChatGPT, I have this AI subsystem here as an example. Um, the human user sees the AI as a tool, right? The tool provides intermediate or whatever feedback that's being asked to provide, right, to the user, and asking it, how do you like it, right? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or do you want me to regenerate, right? So that's the first part of that cycle. The human interlude part of the cycle then is the interaction and the curation initiated by the human, right? The human then will have to say, yes, I like this, or not bad, but can you do it more like this, right? So that sort of feedback is what is revolutionary about the AI writing tools that we have today, right? The interactional, the transactional sort of interaction between the system and the human. But again, we don't want to forget this, right? The human has to be at the core, and that the human is part of the loop. We are not letting AI do the task on its own without a human input or feedback. So I want to show you how might this work out in an actual interaction with AI. So I've captured some scenes with ChatGPT here. But I want to begin with some of these parts of speech, if you will, or prompts, I guess, that you can sort of use to remind us as humans what we can tell the AI writer to do. So we can ask it to perform specific action, right? It can write, it can design, it can describe, it can explain, right? All of these action verbs are things that we can tell the AI to do. Output, what sort of genre do you want the tool to generate? What topic would you like it to write about? For whom, the audience, right? For whom would you like it to write for? And the data set that it can draw from, right? You can ask it to draw from specific sources to write an output. um, what tone and style, right, voice that you would like the AI to write in, and parameters in terms of the scope, right? What length, what word count, right? Other requirements that you might have. And you can see this in this example here. So, for example, I'm asking it to write an action, right? A 150-word Facebook post, which is the genre, about pet adoption, the topic, with a friendly tone or a friendly opening hook. That's the tone. With additional parameters here, right? I want 2 to 3 lines of background information, a call to action for an older audience using input from this particular website as a data source or data set. And let's see what it's able to do for me. So with that prompt, I have this pretty okay Facebook post that has generated. You can see that it draws from um, the AARP website in the second paragraph. And in the first paragraph, it asks folks if they want to consider adopting a furry friend, right? In a sort of friendlier, right? Sort of opening, right? It literally draw from the word friendly, right? With friend that is being used in the opening sentence, a question, I guess. Um, so one human in the loop strategy that we have sort of my collaborators and I have kind of coined is this method called reuse of prompts. So with the regeneration ability in ChatGPT, for example, we can create we can reuse it for a different with a different variable, right? Let's say if I notice that this particular prompt is helpful with certain action parameters or the audience sort of requirements, I can keep this structure as a template, right? For future, let's say for a different topic. Instead of pet adoption, I could talk about um, education, or I can ask it to write about, I don't know, coffee making, right? I'm just looking at my coffee mug on my desk here. So we can use or reuse prompts, right, with different variables, or we can simply ask it to regenerate, right? And using the same prompt and just say, I didn't like what you've provided, rewrite this Facebook post, right? So that's the first method, which is reuse, right? So in this example, I've just asked it to regenerate. I kept the same prompt on the top, and instead of the structure looks similar. And instead of asking more questions in the third paragraph, it simply listed in a statement. The second method or strategy, what we call command stacking, uh, means following up a prompt with another human command, giving the AI writer more precise or different directions, right, for writing. And this required the human to evaluate and to revise the commands. So here's an example of revision. So with that Facebook post prompt, I have looked at the output and I liked it. So I say, okay, now write the same thing, and I have a typo there. Write the same thing for a Twitter post, right? And it did with the same requirements, slightly different genre, right? It is still a social media post, but because it is written for Twitter, it understands that it needs to be shorter, right? So it's generated on the same topic, the same voice and style for the same set of audience, simply for a different channel, right? And it did this. And now with the command stacking, right, method, I've asked it to replace. I say, replace older adults in this post with seniors, and it did. Here you can see that it made that change, and that was the only change that I've asked it to do. So from older adults to seniors, everything else remained the same. So that's just a demonstration on how to apply this sort of human-centered, human-in-the-loop approach. Again, let me just show you the feature here. Um, in order for us to center human and see AI as partners, as tools that can help do our jobs, rather than having it be on its own, or that we as humans centering the system and see us as subordinates in the ecology. So we want the human to be at the core of the picture. So those are the two strategies I just wanted to talk about. And in terms of coming back to the pedagogical side of things, I think what this means for us is that we have to rethink what we mean by writing, right? What we mean, what is writing when we're teaching it? So of course, we still have to teach the skills, the literacy, the ability, the rhetorical awareness to invent, to evaluate, to revise, and to see writing as a process. Yes, I think those are all core foundation as writing. But on top of that, we also need to consider the new activities that are required because of the AI system that are becoming commonplace in the world. So that means students also need to learn to design prompts. They need to think about appropriate ways, such as the examples I provided, with key terms like actions, topics, audience, tone, parameters. I think those need to be taught to students in order to design effective prompts, right? And with that, they should also think about whatever the task they are asking the AI tool to perform, right? I know that it can do certain things, but it also has limitations at this point, right? With this ability to generate content. So I need to be able to design effective tasks through my prompts, right? So that the AI can best do what I'm asking it to do. So those are the things that I would put out and ask us to consider whether or not you're teaching writing. I guess I think this applies to a lot of the things that we do. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. I forgot to check.
Whenever you're ready to wrap up, I think it was so interesting. I didn't even notice the time, and we flew right past it. So,
Okay. Sounds good.
so if you're ready for questions, it's good. But
Right, I would just stop there because the end of the presentation was really just showing you an example of a task. But I think that's good. I'll stop there.
okay. So do we have questions? Thank you very much. It was really fascinating. I didn't even notice the time. So, questions?
Yep. Now I'm curious about the task.
Oh.
Can you summarize, Jason, what you mean by task in this case?
Right. Yeah, I was going to draw from my own design thinking process to demonstrate some of the tasks that I could ask AI to do. For example, generating interview questions, right? Analyzing interview responses, giving me keywords, right? Those are examples that I was going to show that you can do. I can ask an AI to write a persona for an audience that I'm trying to design my content for. Asking it to create a map. Right, creating wireframes, translating languages. These are things, I mean, Google can do, but it would be better if I could do it in one interface rather than different platforms, right? I can ask it to create test solution, testing questions, things like that. So that was the task part that I wanted to show. But thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Other questions? Back?
Not so much a question, but a comment. So I've been using or testing out ChatGPT so far, maybe within the last 2 months or so. And I know one of the things that you can do with it in terms of task is, from an educational standpoint, is to really ask it as a teacher to create a structure for your class. Like, I know the prompts are really good, so it can help you along with that, especially for new teachers who are coming along. The only thing I have with it, it's the accuracy of information. I noticed that you had specifically said within that task for it to check a specific link. So from your recommendation, this is where the question comes in, how can you overcome that accuracy without checking? I know you should always check everything, but in terms of guiding it to a specific thing that you want?
I think the humans still have to be the checker at this point. We are not there yet with the tool to be able to fully rely on it for accuracy purposes. So you're right. I don't have additional recommendations other than doing the work as a human checker in fact checking and quality control.
Okay. Hannah?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a talk. I don't know if you can hear me because of I'm away from the mics. I'm thinking of a talk that I heard like 10 years ago about the dogma of science and computers. And strangely in a context of with religion and things like that, and how much faith we have in science. And in many ways, the philosopher at the time was making the point that many of the computations that we rely on for a lot of what we do are now taken into the sort of computing realm, and we'd never actually ever be able to check them. We just have faith that the initial computations that went into the generation of material and the models actually work. And so with this, I'm thinking, okay, so we have a tool to write now. Instead of numbers, it's writing. We have to be the fact checkers for now, is what I'm hearing. I also heard that, if it was you and you were an undergraduate, you wouldn't want to be doing and spending a lot of time writing. You'd want to be doing other things. So this tool becomes used as a way to either save time or to use your time in other ways. And so I wonder, what do you think about at some point it will become faith that whatever it is that's generated will be accurate and correct. And so there may not be a need for the fact checker. We may spend our time doing other things. What would be those other things you think that we would be doing?
That's a great question. I think I'm already trying to reinvent some of my courses in order to address that, right? I'm no longer assigning, say, like the traditional essay to make an argument, right? I can now ask students to consider, say, other modalities or designing other ways of talking about a claim, right? Or convincing someone to do something, right? Say if you were not writing a letter, if you were not writing an essay to convince someone, how else would you do it, right? That's the sort of consideration that I'm having and I'm making in my teaching and learning activities, right? So I think the same goes for like other kind of literacy change that we have made in the last decades or so with the introduction of social media, with the introduction of Google, right, search engines, right. We have been more innovative, I think, in the way we use these tools today to teach, right. We ask students to Google up things, right, in the classroom, right, and that has become commonly accepted practices, right. And we ask students to contribute to Wikipedia entries. We've asked students to I don't know, create multimodal presentations, right? Those are things that were not afforded to us before computing tools, right? We're in the classroom and we were writing, right? The typewriters and all, or paper and pen. But now we are changing, right? We have already changed a lot of the ways we teach whatever courses.
Amelia, you had a hand up?
My question was very, very similar to Hannah's.
Okay.
I guess for me, it's interesting though, because for me personally, writing is thinking. Thinking is writing, writing is thinking, and that's how I express a lot of my thoughts. So I'm wondering, for the future, for so many people that work in that kind of way, what is this gonna do for their own work, for students? How are they gonna sort of get out their thoughts? And my world is the creative world, right? So everything is wrapped up in language and similes and metaphors and the beauty and the construction of all of that. So I'm wondering, as educators, like what are we assigning now? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know yet what are we assigning, but I agree with you. I think writing is thinking. And I still do a bunch of writing for my own job, right? Having to produce scholarship and communicating research. That's a part of thinking that I think writing is doing for me. But there might be other activities I think that would also help with that thinking and invention process and the delivery, right? Writing is also memory, right? I think, yeah. So, but I'm not seeing the sort of the discourse of crisis and the fear that I'm hearing. What is missing in those discourses now is that I think I'm not seeing that students are like solely relying on it to produce any work. They are still thinking as they are doing this, as they're using the tool to generate whatever content they want, because they know that if they submit, at least from my vantage point, if they submit things that are purely generated without any sort of assessment or evaluation on it, I don't think they're confident about it. Like they're just like, okay, is this truly answering the requirement of the assignment? And as a teacher, I can always tell sort of, does it meet, what I'm asking the students to do? Really, if it's not, then my feedback to the student is that you got to think more, right? You got to be more evaluative of the content that you have asked all these different tools to generate for you. So I think thinking is still part of that activity. It just may look different from how it's manifesting in the process.
I have a question.
Millie?
So my question is based upon her question and what you just said. In the same way that I evaluate my students' essays using a rubric, is there anyone out there working on creating a rubric that students would use to evaluate the product from ChatGPT? Because in order to evaluate the student's ability to evaluate, you need to have consistency, because otherwise it's like when you read 100 essays, by the end of reading 100 essays, you're not even sure you're following your own rubric anymore. So you're going to have to sort of think about how you're going to separate students out, like, who's got the best evaluation skills. And so that's going to require some sort of consistency in that rubric. And I'm just wondering if anybody's thought about how they would accomplish that task. without getting ChatGPT to write a rubric.
Yeah, sure. That's a little bit meta. But I think you have just given us a great direction, I think, for teaching students to be better evaluators, right, of AI generated content, by calibrating, right, by teaching them to become to create their own rubrics for evaluation purposes, right? And in the writing world, we do this with our tutors, right, with our writing assistants who help students, right, with their own writing processes. We teach tutors to generate ways that they can identify weaknesses, identify areas of improvement, so they can, basically work for us, right, in order to teach students to become better writers. So I think students can, in that capacity, students can, just like the tutors, we can teach them to generate evaluative strategies, right, to evaluate their own AI generated content. I think that would be an assignment in itself, and it can be quite interesting to see, what students come up with, right? What do they consider to be important or priorities in written or whatever content? Yeah.
Thank you. So one last question, and then maybe, I think is lunch here? Yeah. Okay. So Anna.
I'm gonna go completely away from the teaching. I have a question. And thinking, because this is a conversation that has been happening actually in my class. I teach math. So I'm completely out there. But one of the things that we have been talking about is the resources that are being used in all of the AI that are hidden, the use and the cost of use of those resources that is completely hidden from us.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question that I have, if I were to use the AI, generative AI, in my classroom for the teaching purposes, and I was only thinking about what it can do in terms of the education, but not at what cost it's also creating in the background as a backbone. So the energy use, the infrastructure use, the human cost in curating all of the data that is being used. So for the pittance of no money and exploitative, employment practices. Do I have a responsibility as a user, as an educator, user, in the use of this tool beyond just what is happening in my classroom? And do I have a responsibility to be educated myself about what the cost is that is not visible to me, yet it is visible to the environment and to the people who are making this possible?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, right? I think we have the ethical responsibilities to know about these things. And in fact, in the White House AI Bill of Rights that I shared earlier, they did mention that transparency by organization is highly encouraged to declare, right, some of these things that you mentioned: the resources, the human labor, the division of this kind of resources in order to achieve the functionalities that we are hoping that these AI systems can achieve. I think the same as outside of technology question, right? I'm thinking as an academic, right? I travel to conferences, I fly multiple times a year, right? All of these things contribute to the carbon footprint that I'm leaving on the world, right? But I'm also doing this in part to do my job, right? And to be able to develop myself so I can contribute back to our community and our students and society, right? So I think there's a give and take. Again, this is a very kind of realist versus idealist, right, debate that we're having. But also, I think we do have that responsibility to disclose to students that these are not neutral, free tools, right? We're using it at a cost, right? Just like social media, right? You are the product. You are the information that you're selling. in order to be able to enjoy the features that are being given to you, right? I think we can teach it in a similar way, and acknowledging that we are contributing to all of these environmental effects and factors that may not always be positive, right? So.
Oh, thank you.
Bravo, thank you, Dr. Tom. That was fabulous, and it was great to have that dialogue with you at the end. And thank you so much for your comments and insights and your nuanced approach to AI chatbots in education. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're going to break for lunch, but thanks again.
Okay, I'll leave for now.